Okay. So we're back for NARAL's the morning after, and everybody, it's Randy's birthday.
Yay!
So we gotta sing
Happy
No,
birthday.
just are you gonna sing?
I was gonna sing. I mean,
Jaime
come
was
on.
like
I was ready
totally
to go.
I'm not singing. Oh God, that would be awful. Okay.
I don't know. I've seen your kids sing on YouTube, so yeah, maybe we should just not do that.
Okay. What happened at the State House this week?
So actually, we had a fairly good week in our world. The budget came out. The Senate put its budget out, and 2 of the 3 Medicaid programs that the House had proposed to eliminate, we're back in it. So we are again covering pregnant women to 200% of poverty, and continuing.
Wait, sorry. Which of the 2 out of 3 programs?
So the pregnant women to 200%.
Okay.
And we're again covering people with breast and cervical cancer to 200% for treatment.
Cervical cancer treatments.
Yes, breast and cervical cancer treatments. So we got those 2. We're still pushing for the family planning program, because if we really want to impact Ohio's infant mortality rate, we need to actually help people not get pregnant when they don't want to be. Birth spacing is a huge way to reduce infant mortality. So we're still fighting to get the family planning program in. What's interesting is that the rationale for, well, we don't need these anymore. Well, the Affordable Care Act, people should have insurance. They should be able to have this coverage. They're required to have this coverage someplace else. But when we start looking at family planning, actually a lot of people who are following the individual mandate and have insurance still don't have access, because we have companies like Hobby Lobby pushing their religious beliefs, yes, and stopping their workers from getting, and all those companies. Yeah. So, this is actually should be more of a slam dunk, because people who are following the law and have insurance can still not have coverage. So we'll see. I got a pretty good reception in committee today. So
Senate Finance Committee?
Yep.
Okay, so they're aware of this.
So they're aware of it. Hopefully we'll be able to figure it out. Senator Tavares asked some really great questions.
Charlita Tavares of Columbus.
Yep.
All right.
And so,
my senator.
Yay.
I'm a block away from her district. It's very annoying. And so we did that. And then also, in a complete surprise to everybody, including Ohio Right to Life, funding for crisis pregnancy centers also came out of the budget this week. Which,
that was $500,000, right?
Yeah, $500,000 a year. So actually a full $1 million over the 2 years of the budget.
So $1 million is no longer going to go to crisis pregnancy centers in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I know.
Yay. I know. Happy birthday to me. That was.
I think they did it just for your birthday. I think that maybe that's why they did it.
I know.
Just to make you happy.
I mean, I can ask for anything better. Making big changes.
Woohoo. And what's really good about that is that it means that those monies are going to actual real programs, because it was coming out of temporary assistance for needy families, which is supposed to give material support to low-income families in Ohio, and instead we are giving it to these ridiculous CPCs. So it means the money is going to someplace better and actually providing people with care, which is awesome. So
do we actually know where it's going?
There were a lot of new programs funded. They actually sent a lot of the money to food banks. Big Brothers Big Sisters actually got $1 million, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of programming comes out of that. So
that's a much better cause than these phony baloney, fake healthcare organizations that don't really provide healthcare and lie to women.
So it was a good week. We had a good week on the budget side of things. We'll, of course, go into some of the not so good things that happened in a minute. But we had a good day when we read the budget, and it was funny though, because we all live in a world where when something good happens, we expect something really bad to happen.
Right.
So every time I told anybody about the CPC funding, the response was, "What's going to happen now?"
Right.
Like, what are they going to do that's really bad?
Yeah.
And there's a deadline, right?
Yes, June 30th, they have to pass the new budget, or we won't be able to pay state employees or do anything in the state of Ohio. So
that's critical. Okay.
Midnight on June 30th, we'll see. So it's a victory for now. There are still, 2 more steps of this process. The Senate has to come out with their final version of the budget, and then they have to go through conference committee. And we all know what happened in conference committee 2 years ago. That's when we got all the heartbeat restrictions and everything else. So there's still a long way to go, but we celebrate a temporary victory for now.
So we have to be vigilant for another 19 days, and then budget season will be over.
Thank the Lord.
Yes.
Yay.
Okay.
Speaking of what else bad could happen, the other day we went to hear sponsor testimony for the 20-week ban in the Senate. And there was we talked previously about the Down syndrome ban. that we've heard testimony for and that you went and testified for. And so there was actually a Toledo Blade editorial talking about the Down syndrome ban and also talking about the 20-week ban as well as the heartbeat bill. And I was reading over it, and I did pick something out that really stuck out to me. And it reminded me of, do you ever read that book when you were a kid? Hopefully it was around the same time. I don't know. But you probably heard of the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie.
I think I've heard of it before.
Randy's the baby at the office. Yes.
At Spry 29. Okay, so the premise, first of all, I want to read the quote here. It's in the Toledo Blade editorial. It says, whatever happens to the Down syndrome's bill, Ohioans who support reproductive rights must continue to pay attention to and challenge the anti-abortion movement's continued onslaught against those rights. Anti-choice activists have succeeded by advancing seemingly small abortion restrictions. And I say that reminds me of that book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, because in the book, it starts off, if you give a mouse a cookie, he'll want a glass of milk. If you give him a glass of milk, he'll want to come inside. If you let him come inside, he'll want to sleep on your bed. If you let him sleep on your bed, and basically just asking, starts off small and asking more and more and more. And that's exactly what they're doing right now by starting off with, well, not the 6-week ban, an exception because it's way out there. Saying that, you know, the 20-week ban because according to them, a lot of people support that, and they think that, you know, that's a good amount of time for a woman to have decided whether or not she's going to terminate. And also saying that we need to do this because fetuses, you know, feel pain at 20 weeks, although there's been no evidence to corroborate that, although we heard otherwise, but we'll talk about that more, my feelings on that. But yeah, so that was just, I thought that's funny. It made me think of that book that I used to read when I was in elementary school.
Well, it's definitely what they were doing. I mean, when you look at, especially when you compare like Ohio to Texas, you know, we both faced very similar kind of environments over the last several years, but Texas did it in that huge House Bill 2 with everything in one that closed down like 90% of their clinics and made, you know, things really, really bad in one kind of fell swoop. Whereas in Ohio, they've been doing, well, you have to have a transfer agreement, and then public hospitals can't do the transfer agreement. And, you know, and it has been those little, you know, cookie, milk, come in the house, sleep on your bed,
chipping away at access.
Yeah. Right. The 6-week ban where I think maybe he's, you know, in your pocket all day. I don't know, but, you know, so, and that's just a very true analogy there for sure.
Exactly. And the next way that they are chipping away, which was the other big event from this week. Yesterday morning, we heard sponsor testimony from Peggy Lehner, State Senator Peggy Lehner, former head of Ohio Right to Life, Peggy Lehner. And she is promoting her bill, which is the Senate version of the 20-week ban. It's the same legislation that we've seen at the federal level. We've already seen it in the Ohio House. And so now it's in the Ohio Senate. Chipping away, you know, they want their cookie crumbs. And she stood up and gave her sponsor testimony. What I thought was like the big point that, you know, that I came up with, that I took away, she gave her testimony, which was what was expected, and then got some really terrific questions from State Senator Capri Cafaro, one of the Democrats on the committee. Senator Cafaro, she's going to get our "That's What She Said" of the week, because she stepped right up and asked the questions. You know, where's the science coming from? And then the part that kind of opened my eyes, is a question that, you know, is I don't want to say it's not original, but we've heard it before. Where's the rape exception from in this bill? There isn't one.
Exactly.
And the answer, which we've also heard before from Ohio Right to Life, is the notion that women seeking abortions at 20 weeks, it's never because of rape. By this point, you know, a survivor of rape would have already sought out an abortion earlier. That 20 weeks, it's never because of that. The other half of their testimony is an attempt to downplay the assertion that most of the abortions that take place at around 20 weeks are because of recently diagnosed prenatal medical complications, where a woman may have wanted to have a healthy pregnancy and is now finding out that unfortunately it's not working and has to make the decision as to whether or not to terminate. So Ohio Right to Life is saying it's not because of medical complications. And they're saying it's not because of, a pregnancy as a result of rape. And so they're starting to kind of divide the group of women that are seeking abortions. And so then we get into a discussion about, was cost a factor? Yeah. And the Republican Party has made big efforts to try and remove the ability of women to pay for abortions. So maybe it took her a little bit more time to come up with the money. Sure. And so I think the big takeaway is, they're starting to play this game where let's move away the women with medical complications and let's move away the women that are doing this because of rape. And I think you boil it all down to the conclusion that it's none of your business why she's getting an abortion. It's up to her and her doctor.
Exactly.
2 weeks, 20 weeks. It's none of our business. It's not Peggy Lehner's business. It's not Capri Cafaro's business. And she doesn't think that it is. It's none of my business. It's the woman and her doctor.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and it backs up this whole abortion shame thing that came out in last week's Down syndrome hearing as well, with Antani asking me, well, what about a woman in this situation? What about a woman in that situation? And when a reporter asked me afterwards, like, that was kind of intense in there. What was that? And my response back to that was, this is the stigma that a woman faces in our communities every single day when she decides to have an abortion. It's the same kind of crap that's yelled at her outside an abortion clinic. It's a shame and stigma that have been created by anti-choice protesters and activists, and also like the complete non-understanding of the fact that the bills you put into place are why women choose abortion later.
Exactly.
You cut off Medicaid, you cut off insurance coverage, you make her go physically to the clinic twice. You've cut childcare subsidies, you've done all these things that a low-income woman needs to help access abortion care early on in pregnancy. And you put all these obstacles in her way. So she is choosing to terminate later in a pregnancy because of what they have created in the world. So it's just really frustrating to sit through those hearings. Thank God for Twitter.
It was. Yeah. Follow us on Twitter.
Snarky.
Ohio.
Snarkiness on Twitter is always good.
So the questions that constantly change up to give us new questions, the answer is always going to be just trust women to make their own decision. It's up to her faith provider if she wants, and her doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Politicians do not belong in that room. So
and on that note, this week's Walk of Shame also then goes to Peggy Lehner, Senator Peggy Lehner. And she actually didn't speak this out loud. I guess maybe at some point she decided maybe these words shouldn't be spoken. But thank God the legislature now publishes their testimony on their website. Because at the end of one of her paragraphs, towards the beginning of her testimony, she actually put in her testimony that it may be said that a woman who fails to act before 20 weeks into a pregnancy has consented to the state's intervention on behalf of the developing child.
Consented to the state?
Yes. So basically she thinks that if a woman has, delayed accessing abortion care to 20 weeks, that she's consented to the state telling her what she should do in her decision making. And, she went to college. She's got a degree in history, but she's not a constitutional scholar. And I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court's been pretty secure in the fact that the state can't actually do those kinds of things until viability, 20 weeks being way before that point in pregnancy anyway. So our walk of shame definitely goes to Lehner for that statement of, because we've put all these obstacles in women's ways or something has happened during her pregnancy that has changed how she looks at her pregnancy because of a medical complication. She's consented to the state coming in and saying, "Oh, no, it's not your decision anymore. It's ours."
Now, this whole consent to the state, this is eugenics, which would be a policy, and we're presenting a pro-choice, literally, let the woman choose.
Exactly.
Calling it consent to the state, saying that something's eugenics, saying that something's discrimination. The Toledo Blade editorial we talked about already said that, framing it this way is disingenuous, and it's really just trying to hide their agenda of removing a woman's right to choose.
Exactly.
That's what all of this is.
I was going to say, well, their whole logic is if you're not saying no, you must be saying yes. And I was just like, who else says that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who else says that? we all know.
Consent is critical.
Exactly.
Alrighty. So one of the other big stories out of the news this week was a national decline in abortion rate. State after state after state have seen abortion rates decline. We've seen it in Ohio. And what was really interesting was that, of course, anti-choice activists immediately were like, oh, it's because we passed all these bills. But when you look at the states that actually declined the most, they were states that hadn't made access to abortion harder.
Exactly.
So obviously it's disingenuous again to say that, oh, we passed all these bills, so women are choosing life or whatever their talking point was. But what was really interesting about that was that there were 2 states where the abortion rate didn't decline: Louisiana and Michigan.
Michigan.
Yes. So Louisiana and Michigan both have the, distinct honor of being border states to 2 states that have been completely disastrous towards a woman's right to choose: Texas and Ohio. Let's think about this for a minute. So in another stellar editorial out of the Toledo Blade this week, they actually looked into this more and said, maybe it is Michigan's rates were going up, maybe because more women from Northwest Ohio were going into Michigan to get abortion care. Mm-hmm. So they actually looked at the numbers, and from 2013 to 2014, it almost doubled the number of out-of-state women going to Michigan to get abortion care.
That's right when all the crap's been going on in Toledo, and they've been attacking abortion providers there.
Yeah, it was in 2013 that we lost our first clinic.
Right.
So what's really interesting is that, when you look at the national decline in abortion rates, the 2 states that stand out are Michigan and Louisiana, where it hasn't gone up. Michigan, I think, it actually gone up by 18%.
Yeah.
Which is about as high as the highest decline was in other states. So when we look at all these things, we're really looking at stopping women from getting an abortion at a clinic in Toledo didn't stop her from getting an abortion. It just forced her to go across state lines, or forces her to take matters into her own hands, like we saw with the woman in Georgia this week,
right,
where she was initially charged with murder for trying to use an abortion-inducing drug to have an abortion. And the charges have been dropped on the murder charge, but she's still being charged with illegal possession of a drug or something like that. Right. And this is what we're seeing, is that we're not seeing women stopping needing abortions.
Exactly.
They just have to drive to Michigan, or they have to take matters into their own hands. So the fact that all these organizations are saying, we're going to ban abortion, it's going to stop happening. That's exact data came out of the study that says that's exactly the opposite of what happens. Mm-hmm. They just go someplace else to get the care. And in fact, the highest increases in Michigan were in Detroit and Ann Arbor, which is the closest 2 cities to Toledo and Michigan.
Yeah.
So, it is directly relatable to the fact that people are having to go there to get abortion care instead of Ohio.
Wow.
I saw the article and I didn't see the map, and then I saw the map and I was like, oh, wait a minute. What are those 2 states that are glowing different colors?
So when we talk about punishing low-income women, this is exactly what it looks like.
Oh yeah.
It's an exodus from, one state, or else, something illegal and unsafe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, then another, bad news point was the ruling out of Texas. And went this week, where they ruled that House Bill 2 was constitutional out of the 5th Circuit. And what was interesting is I was reading some article, and they really set it out in a really clear way of how ridiculous the continuous hearings, the rulings have been out of even, I think, that circuit court, because they've heard Mississippi and Alabama laws where they would close the last clinic in a state.
Right.
And so the court's been really clear on, well, if we force them to travel 200 miles and they have to cross a state line, that's bad. We can't do that. That's unconstitutional. But the ruling out of Texas, out of Texas, it said, well, if the woman has to drive 300 miles, but she doesn't have to cross a state line, that's totally fine. It's kind of like you need a passport to go from Texas to Louisiana or Alabama to wherever. It was just completely ridiculous. Yeah. Like driving 300 miles, crossing a state line or not crossing a state line, there's not a difference in the United States. You don't have to go through border control. But so it was just
it is Texas.
How ridiculous. If you're brown colored, maybe you might have to go through border control. But another subject entirely.
Exactly.
But yeah, so just this constant battering of all of these cases and all of how it just doesn't make any sense. I think, was it you or Carissa earlier this week was saying how, I don't know how you've done this for 10 years and your head hasn't exploded.
That was me.
Yeah, those are the moments where I think if it was actually a possibility that the head could explode, those are those moments where just like, do you not understand that stopping a woman from getting an abortion in Ohio just means she's going to Michigan?
Right.
Stopping a woman from Texas, this stops her from going to Louisiana. Is like, you're not solving the problem here. If you really cared, you'd do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on to fun things that are happening this week.
Yay! Tomorrow is June 12th, and Orange is the New Black is coming back, and I'm very excited.
Did they do that just for your birthday too? Was that
I
your
think so.
your late birthday
Actually,
present?
I think it might have came out the same time last year.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it always comes out on June 12th. So, but still exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. This is the 3rd season. Gabe hasn't watched it yet.
I haven't seen an episode, so tell me what don't spoil anything, but tell me what I'm missing. Why is this a good show?
No
I'm not going to
spoilers.
spoil anything. I think it's a good show because the first season did start out a lot about Piper, which is a woman who wrote the book, and it's based off of her book.
Is she the blonde on the post? I've seen
Yes.
the Netflix poster. Okay, so she's the blonde wrapping her fists up, ready to box.
Exactly.
Okay.
So she is the main character because it's based off her book. But there are also so many other characters in there. And, like Laverne Cox, who plays a prisoner in there, who's a transgendered actress and, has become very famous for playing that role. And just a lot of also just different stories of LGBT women, of Black women, Asian women, Hispanic women. So it's been just really interesting. And you get to see their backstories and why, they're in there and just things that were going on in their life. And then you get to see them interact with each other in prison there. So there's a lot of drama, but also a lot of comedy, which is why I really enjoy it. And also you get to see, and right now, one of the prisoners, her name's Dayanara, and she's pregnant. She actually got, well, I won't spoil it for you. She's pregnant.
No spoilers.
Wait, was she pregnant when she went into the prison?
No, she
No,
was
let's
not.
put it that way.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, there you go.
Somebody's breaking some rules. So she's pregnant now, so she's gonna carry her baby to term in prison, which makes me think about some recent stories about people in prison here. And although we all know how fucked up the criminal justice system is, we'll just today we'll just talk specifically about people who are already in jail. And so there was actually they have since made it so that they stopped doing this practice, but in California they were forcing the female inmates to be sterilized. And
are you kidding me?
Well, I shouldn't say forcing. I should say they were strongly suggesting to them.
What does strongly suggest mean in prison?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I'm not privy to the actual conversation, but in the article is saying that the women talking were just saying that the way they presented it to them while they were in jail, it seemed like that this was the best health care that they were going to get since they were in jail. And so felt that they should go along with what the doctor was suggesting to them. And so there ended up being several hundred women there that won't be able to have kids now after they leave prison. But since then, the governor has made that practice illegal now, so they stopped doing it.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's still pretty crazy that was happening just as recently as 2010. When I would think that we've known that has happened before, but as recently as 2010, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and
that's not the only thing that women, are subject to in prisons.
No,
when it
not
comes to reproductive health care too.
Pregnant women, are shackled. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places they're shackled while they're giving birth. I mean, I've never given birth before, but I don't imagine I would be
comfortable shackled to a bed during that.
Yes. And just as I wouldn't be in a position to try to run and escape. Yeah. Like, where am I going to go? I'm giving labor. I'm in labor. So yes, that's
Mhm.
really, really crazy.
Well, even I've heard stories where even, during transport, like not during labor, but just while they're pregnant, being moved from one part of the jail to another part of the jail, they're put in handcuffs behind their back and put in leg shackles. And, when you think about a pregnant woman, your center of gravity is shifted out in front of you. It is
Right.
no longer, where it normally is. So think
Mhm.
about putting your hand behind your back, shifting even more weight forward, and shackles on your legs as well. I mean, that's just asking for you to fall.
Yes.
And then your hands are
Right.
shackled behind the back. There's nothing you can do to catch yourself in that process either. So even during, moving and those kinds of things
Mhm.
inside of prison, shackling pregnant inmates is a practice that a lot of states are getting rid
Yeah.
of. Ohio is not one of them yet. I know that there are several state legislators, including Nikki Antonio from Lakewood near Cleveland, has been really, vocal on trying to and bring awareness to that in Ohio as well.
Exactly. And no, I was just gonna say, so it's as if they care for you to give birth. We don't care for pregnant inmates, for them to be safe, for them to have the healthcare that they need and to be safe when they're trying to give birth. Right now, they had taken the pregnant women off the Medicaid, or finally got it back on there. But it's like, yeah, we don't care for you while you're pregnant, before you get pregnant. Just in those 12 hours that you're giving birth, like, we want you to do that, and then that's it.
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
Exactly. And just related to that, it was just an interesting story about, again, the prison system. So there was a young boy, his name is Khalif Browder. Maybe some of you have heard him before, maybe not. But he kind of became a face for prison reform, specifically in Rikers, which is a jail in New York, Rikers Island. So back in 2010, when Khalif was 16 years old, he was charged with robbery. So he was then at 16 years old, a minor, sent to Rikers Island.
It's an adult prison.
Yes.
By the way, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
He was there for 3 years. He spent 2 of those years in solitary confinement.
2 years
Yes.
in solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
At 16.
Yes. So after 3 years, and when he wasn't in solitary confinement, he was forced abuse from the guards, abuse from the other inmates. He tried to, while he was there in prison, he tried to kill himself a few times. And as a punishment, he said that they would starve him like up to 3 or 4 meals, not feed him. And, so he got his, after the 3 years, the charges were dropped. He wasn't convicted.
Wait. Back it up. He spent 3 years in prison and he was never convicted. So he was waiting for 3 years in prison, waiting for a trial.
Exactly. He was never convicted of a crime.
Just want to make that clear.
And so he left, and he had been doing a lot better. And there's someone who actually volunteered to pay for him to go to community college.
That's
and
good.
Like I said, he had been out there being the face of prison reform, specifically for Rikers Island. And actually now, recently, Mayor Bill de Blasio made it illegal for them to put 16 and 17-year-olds in solitary confinement. But this last Saturday, June 6th, Khalif, he actually he committed suicide. He was at home in the Bronx, and his family found him, and he hanged himself. So even though, and he said prior, to being in jail, he never had any mental illness. He never thought about hurting himself before. But, after spending 2 years in solitary confinement, you're 16 years old.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be hard enough for a fully grown, fully developed brained human being adult to do. For somebody whose nervous system brain is still very much developing at 16, that would make huge impacts in their mental development to be cooped up alone for 20, I think it's like 23 and a half hours every single day.
Exactly. And on the show, Orange is the New Black Piper, there is an episode where she gets in trouble and they put her in solitary confinement, and she starts talking to someone who's supposedly in the other cell, but you don't really know if she was talking to someone or not, or if it was in her head.
Yeah, and she was there for like 3 days or something like that.
Exactly.
So she was
only there for a few days.
For 3 days, and he was in there for 2 solid years.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah,
tragedy.
so that's really crazy. And so now, to say he was never convicted of a crime. So there's 10,000 prisoners at Rikers Island right now, and 1,500 of them have never been convicted of a crime. They've been there for over a year.
That's the most incredible thing I've heard.
I mean, is that really access to a speedy trial? I don't think so. You've been waiting for over a year just to have a trial. You haven't been convicted of anything, and you're in jail.
It's like half the prison is just a direct violation of the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's like that's in the original Constitution.
Yeah.
Yes.
Imprison someone.
Yeah. Exactly. But apparently we do it anyway.
Because our criminal justice system is so broken. That
Yes.
Randy, this is
People
the
don't
last
even-
time we ask you to take us out on a high note. This is the worst happy
Well, no, because
happy conclusion to a show.
I can't just talk about, Orange and then not relate it to everything else that's going on. But yeah, so you got to know about that. You got to know about the sad stuff too, so we can change it. But still happy Orange is the New Black's coming back. Talk about more things, open our eyes up to other situations going on in jail.
I'll watch.
So yes, watch it. It's good drama, but also extremely, extremely, extremely funny stuff happens. If you just watch the trailer, the way the trailer ends, with Uzo, and I'm not going to try to share her last name because I'll butcher it. Also, AKA Crazy Eyes or Susan Warren. It's really funny. You just have to watch. Yes,
Okay.
It's good.
Let's go out on a legit happy note.
Yes.
Women's soccer, the World Cup is in Canada. How do you think our prospects look?
They look pretty good right now. We'll see what happens, but I could take us back down on a low note. But
we beat Australia 3-1.
We beat them 3-1. They might be playing on turf, which isn't good, but whatever. And we're we'll keep it on a high note, and I think they'll go all the way.
Okay, Randy, are you watching?
I'm not watching.
Oh,
I've been watching the finals though.
The finals,
the finals,
NBA.
though.
Go Cleveland.
Game 4 tonight.
Cleveland.
Okay, go
Ohio
Cleveland.
Pride.
It's been really good games.
There's our happy note. Go Cleveland. Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.